Okay. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. A warm welcome to all of you in the African Peer Review Mechanism side event on building resilient societies in the Global South post-COVID-19. My name is Sarah Hamouda. I am in charge of South-South cooperation in the African Peer Review Mechanism. And I would like to welcome you all and of course welcome our speakers. Thank you for your time and thank you for joining us, regardless of your tight schedules. I would like now to give the floor to Professor Eid Maruka for his welcome remarks. And thank you once again for joining us. Professor, hand off to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sarah, and Excellencies, Honorable Minister Hala El Said. Thank you very much for being here. Also, I wish to recognize our friends and colleagues in New York. Good morning there, Ambassador Adonia Jorge, the Director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, and also the speakers, my friend, Mr. Tiliso Matuna, who's the Director General of the National Planning Commission in South Africa, our colleague Catalina Quintero, Director of South-South Cooperation, Presidential Agency for Cooperation, Republic of Colombia, Mr. Tomoya Yoshida, Deputy Director General, Human Development Department, Japan International Cooperation Agency, and of course, my dear friend Tariq, who's the Deputy Director for Policy and Strategic Partnership in the Office for South-South Cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, you are all welcome and all protocol is duly observed. And then good morning if you are in New York, but here in South Africa, it's in the afternoon. Please allow me to welcome you to this special event organized jointly by the African Peer Review Mechanism, the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, and the Permanent Mission of Uganda to the United Nations. In a short span of time, an invisible yet lethal organism has traveled the world and challenged the developed and developing nations alike on multiple fronts: political, economic, social, and indeed health and sanitary. The spread of COVID-19 has caught renowned scientists, policymakers, and governance experts by surprise. In modern history, only the 1918 flu influenza can compare to COVID-19 in terms of the speed at which it infects people and the scale. A virus that has humbled humankind indiscriminately must be tackled collectively. Therefore, we're keen to organize this visual event with our colleagues among our traditional engagement in the context of the high-level political forum that takes place in New York this time of the year, in search for a consolidated experiences of national resilience during times of crisis and disasters. In this regard, I just want to say quickly, Excellencies, that we, from our point of view, we view this. We just want to highlight a few ideas. The first one, that the world needs multilateral cooperation and innovative strategies if it's to overcome a disease that knows no bounds. So solidarity, which characterizes the forging of partnerships between countries in the global south, is needed now and fast. Secondly, strengthening regional integration becomes more necessary than ever before, while looking inward at this time is detrimental to the planet's efforts to recover from and eradicate COVID-19. It is crucial to develop our manufacturing capacities to meet the demands of people in our respective countries and export surplus products. What the pandemic has shown us is that supply chains have to be diversified urgently. Thirdly, the quest for institutional resilience at national and regional levels in the global south is urgently needed to enhance the country's recovery from COVID-19 disaster. In responding to COVID-19, the African Peer Review Mechanism, we of course established a task force, and that produced a preliminary report on Africa's governance report to COVID-19. Finally, Excellencies, I'd like to seize this opportunity and announce that the APRM and the United Nations Office on South-South Cooperation have reached a significant step in our collaboration, and we're soon concluding a memorandum of understanding to institutionalize our collaboration, which has been taking place for some years now. We truly commend the stewardship of Mr. Sheikh and Tariq to take our partnership forward to serve the interests of our continent, Africa, and of course of all of us in the developing part of the world. I thank you for your kind attention, and I'd like to give the floor now to Dr. Hala El Said to deliver her keynote address.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Maluka. Dr. Hala, off to you. Dr. Hala, we can't hear you. Are you muted?
Hello?
Hi, yes, we can hear you now,
Can you
Excellency.
hear me like this?
Yes, we can hear you now, Excellency. Thank you.
We can hear you now, Honorable Minister.
Okay, thank you. Yes, yes. Okay. Professor Eddie Maluka, Professor Eddie Maluka, ambassadors, greetings and a warm welcome from Cairo. It gives me great pleasure to be among you today in this side event organized by two main instruments that Egypt is a strong supporter of, the South Cooperation and the African Peer Review Mechanism. Egypt, as you know,
Minister, we can't hear you again. I think there are some breakings on your side.
both supporting African countries.
Dr. Hala, there are breakings on your side. We can't hear you. Minister, we can't hear you, Minister. Yeah, I think she will log off, maybe and log out. I don't know. Dr. Hala, she's back. Are you muted? You are muted, Minister. I see that your mic is not on.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Minister. Yes, Minister. Yes, Minister.
Yes. Gentlemen, the circumstances that we are witnessing with the COVID-19 pandemic and its vast health, economic, and social implications, especially on developing countries, has proven that South achieving resiliency and sustainability to our economies, and especially to our social fabrics, as well as acceleration in the implementation of the SDGs are needed now more than ever. Human well-being is the entry point for maximizing the progress to social protection, net, eradicating poverty and hunger, investing in our human capital through quality education, eradicating poverty, reducing inequality, and provision of decent work are on top of our agenda. Priority is also given to digitalization, innovation, and technology for their indispensable, as well as an agile, adaptive approach, a policy of transparency in communicating risks, and citizens' voluntary cooperation are critical factors in dealing with COVID-19 and the post-COVID-19. In order to mitigate the impacts of this pandemic, the government of Egypt has proactively taken almost 330 policies and measures that were distributed 330 policies and measures. A comprehensive stimulus package of almost 2% of GDP, monetary policies, including cutting interest rates and facilitating export. The comprehensive reform package helped industry led to help the economy create resilience in facing the externals established, presided by the Prime Minister, with myself being the rapporteur, in order to coordinate efforts exerted by the government, financial institutions, and civil society to support the informal and irregular workers. Accordingly, a national employment data on the informal
to fill a vital gap in
data
and incorporate them into the formal sector.
Formal sector
also helped create a base to identify genuine beneficiaries, and as a result of these coordinated efforts, approximately 2 million informal and irregular workers have received cash transfers. In order to monitor and assess all the government policies to deal with the COVID, the Ministry of Planning developed a policy tracker and linked this policy tracker to the SDGs and Egypt Vision 2030. Despite all these efforts, the crisis has shown that still more needs to be done. Egypt has given significant priority to the health sector, with almost increasing our investment in this sector for the fiscal year 2021 to almost 45% compared to last year. Also, another initiative called Decent Life that basically targets the least impoverished villages, benefiting more than 56% of the population. We're providing more focus addressing the internal development gaps by localizing SDGs in different Egyptian governorates and benefiting from the comparative advantage of each one. We also are working on developing a regional competitiveness index. In addition to that, digital infrastructure will be further enhanced in order to respond to the increasing demand and the increased traffic on internet and digital services. Public investment in this regard is increased by almost 300%. More attention is also given to green economy initiatives, and Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Environment agreed that 30% of all projects should be entitled to environmental sustainability and green economy concepts. This green economy concepts and the percentage will be raised yearly to reach 100% during the coming 3 years. We're also working in parallel on structural reforms, focusing on 7 priority sectors that are labor intensive and have significant contribution to achieving sustainable economic growth. Participation of the private sector is key to our economy. In this regard, the government of Egypt established Egypt First Sovereign Wealth Fund as a mechanism to create new partnership with local and foreign private sector. Egypt Sovereign Wealth Fund has successfully joined the International Forum of Sovereign Wealth Funds in May 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, the General Assembly has described South-South cooperation as an important element of international cooperation for development, which offers viable opportunities for developing countries in their individual and collective pursuits of sustained economic growth and sustainable development, emphasizing that South-South cooperation is not a substitute for, but is complementary to North-South cooperation. This is why Egypt has taken a strong lead in South-South cooperation through the Egyptian Agency for Partnership for Development, as well as through tripartite cooperation with the Islamic Development Bank and Japan. This has resulted in more than 250 experts visits to 30 African countries for training and facilitation of knowledge sharing in a variety of sectors, including water resources, health, agriculture, and education. Egypt has also launched the Center for South-South Industrial Cooperation for transferring technology and promoting innovation-based industrial development among African states. The aim is to establish itself as a significant provider of South-South cooperation in information and communication technologies, given its vast expertise in utilizing this sector in community development, agriculture, education, health, and small and medium enterprises. Furthermore, the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, in collaboration with the World Food Programme, is working on establishing a knowledge platform that will facilitate the identification and sharing of lessons learned and best practices in job creation, as well as in building resilience, social protection, food security, and nutrition strategies. Under this initiative, the following activities will take place: aligning national regional development agenda with SDGs, provision of technical support in the production of voluntary national reviews, and enhancing job creation in Africa through the implementation of 1 million job initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, the current pandemic represents an opportunity for each and every country to localize industries and to maximize its participation in value chains. The need to expand trade among our countries is necessity, and given Egypt's unique position, it is ready to facilitate exports between different regions in the global south. We also stand ready to share our best practice in mitigating the effects of COVID-19 pandemic and build capacities in SDGs planning, monitoring, and evaluation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, only with real commitment, political will, and solidarity among various stakeholders across governments, international financial institutions, businesses, and civil society can we come out of this pandemic stronger than ever. Let me conclude by saying, coming together is a beginning, staying together is a progress, and working together is the real success. Thank you all, and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and thank you very much for making time to be part of this event, and also thanks for sharing with us the Egyptian experience and also the contribution of Egypt to South-South cooperation, the work you are doing also in bilateral cooperation, including with other partners in the world, and the point you made about South-South cooperation as being complementary but not in competition with North-South cooperation. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. At this point, I'd like to invite my friend Jorge Khadir, Director and also there was a special envoy of the United Nations Secretary General on South-South Cooperation. Jorge, you've got the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eddie. It is a real honor for our office to be co-sponsoring this event with the African Peer Review Mechanism, with also the permanent mission of Uganda, Ambassador Adonia, the President of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation. I really want to thank Minister El Said because she said many things that we were planning to emphasize. And I will reinforce 3 or 4 points. Number one is that the South-South and triangular cooperation are essential. And I mentioned triangular cooperation on purpose because we have the honor of having Mr. Tomoya with us, and Japan has been one of the leaders, the leader actually, in establishing triangular cooperation. And it has been validated in BAPA, both South-South and triangular cooperation, as an essential tool if we are to achieve the 2030 agenda and other global goals. As Mr. Maloka mentioned, not as replacement, but as a complement to traditional North-South cooperation. So the importance of that modality is strongly emphasized. Second, COVID has put, as it was mentioned by Mr. Maloka and by the minister, enormous tension on the multilateral system. The tendency for many countries was to react at the national level and even at the local level. And in that context, very few groups of nations managed to get together, particularly in the initial phases of the pandemic, to engage in collective action. So for the multilateral system, be it the global system with the UN and its institutions, and the regional, sub-regional, and thematic entities, this pandemic is presenting a major challenge. I really salute the African Peer Review Mechanism that is already engaging on this and also producing materials also for the next phase that will be a very challenging one beyond the health emergency we're still going through, which will be the reconstruction and the rehabilitation and the rebuilding. Number 3, the COVID crisis will produce tremendous damage. Is destroying massive amounts of economic production. It will generate massive unemployment. It will disrupt financial investment flows. And it will also put a lot of stress and break many value chains that provide employment and income generation opportunities to many countries. So therefore, we have to concentrate on trying to mitigate that damage and also trying to, as the Secretary General revealed, back better. And my last point is what to do next after the COVID crisis. As I said, we're going to have a multilateral system under severe stress, a world with very serious consequences, and also a disruption on the traditional economic flows of trade, investment, and finance. And in that context, I think South-South cooperation will be critical. Will be critical because we can share experiences, and I have participated in many events, including one we co-sponsored with the Colombian Agency of Cooperation that shows, like the minister mentioned in Egypt, that many countries in the South are finding good responses to the crisis. So we need to exchange that through South-South cooperation. That knowledge needs to be exchanged in all stages, at the health level, at the early stages of the pandemic, at the social level, at the economic level, etc. Then the next stage, and I mentioned also especially Ambassador Adonia with his strong leadership here in the UN, is that we have to work to make out of this crisis as much as possible an opportunity to re-establish the production chains, the global supply chain, enhancing the advantages and the possibilities of improving the participation of the South. We'll probably have to get together to confront the challenges of the financial legacy of this crisis, probably a strong hangover of debt that will probably require global initiatives. And also we'll have to find ways to repair the governance, to improve as much as possible the quality of life of our people. And for that, institutions like the African peer review mechanism can contribute significantly. So modestly from our office, we will continue to be totally committed to the sharing of knowledge. We have a platform that many of you know that is called South-South Galaxy, and promoting other types of exchanges to ensure that the best practices of the Global South are actively shared and implemented, and at the same time in the next event, and you again, Ambassador Ayebare, has a great responsibility as Uganda hosting the South Summit to ensure that the international architecture takes into account the needs of the countries of the South in confronting the pandemic and the post-pandemic. So again, thank you very much. It's really a great honor for us to be with such great partners as the APRM, Uganda, Egypt, Colombia, and South Africa working together. And on behalf of UNICC, look forward to listening and to continue working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Thanks for making the point, emphasizing the importance of triangular cooperation, and also the point you raised about South-South cooperation, of course, to really help us respond to this crisis through the sharing of experience, and also how we work together to reestablish and rebuild the global value chain. Thank you very much for such important observation. I now pass the floor to my dear friend, Ambassador Adoni Ayebare, who really played a key role in bringing Jorge's center with the APRM, and we thank you. He played a key role in the United Nations General Assembly, leading an important process towards the Papa process that took place last year in Argentina. So, Ambassador, you have the floor, and also thank you for being our co-host here.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope everybody is hearing me. Let me, from the onset, thank the Minister, Dr. Hara, the Minister of Economic Planning and Cooperation of Egypt, for taking off time to address us, and that shows Egypt's commitment to the ideas of South-South cooperation and solidarity in general. And let me also thank Dr. Eddie and the APRM for being a flag bearer of South-South cooperation at the continental level in Africa. Let me also thank, of course, your staff, Sarah, and others for putting this together. And I cannot start by not thanking my colleagues, Shadik and Tariq at the South-South office for the work they do. When this crisis started, I was thinking of how can we really be of value to the response. And they really stepped up on the plate by really coordinating all of us and sharing knowledge. For us, BAPA plus 40, and I have two hats, being the ambassador of Uganda, but the president of the high level committee. For us, BAPA plus 40 is the entry point. This document that was agreed upon by all member states at the UN level now has proved to really be relevant on South-South cooperation, and as Shadik said, on triangular cooperation. So this document really now, the implementation of BAPA plus 40 will really, the ideas are there. It's an agreed framework. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is to use it as a framework of cooperation as we recover from the public health emergency, but also during the public health emergency. Countries of the South were overstretched with the supply chain, getting the famous PPEs. The world descended into the ugly head of nationalism. Especially developing countries were disadvantaged because the sources of this equipment it comes from the same source. There is a competition, developing countries, the private sector, all competing, and cooperation really came in essential, especially from a South-South perspective. And as we go forward, the public health emergency is with us. There is no clear line between how we move on from recovery. It seems we have to start recovery as the health emergency continues. And that will really be very important for us to cooperate. And APRM is really will be a partner. And Africa has also done its part through the African Union, chaired by the President of South Africa, by putting in place response initiatives on COVID-19. And the African CDC is really a model of how countries can come together at the regional level. And the BAPA plus 40 document, of course, mentioned the importance of sub-regional, regional, and inter-regional organization for cooperation. And COVID is really a test of how we go forward. And of course, international coordination and cooperation during recovery. And of course, as I said, recovery and the public health emergency seem to be going together, and you cannot, it's not a linear process of when you start recovery. Recovery has to start now as more countries reopened. We need to coordinate more. There is a lot of experience in the South we can share. Some countries have really done it better than others, but the good news is that there is willingness to share. And the Office of South-South Cooperation at the UN level will be key. And the partnership with the APRM really now needs to be strengthened. We set it up. Now this is the time to really work together as we move forward. Thank you, President Eddie, for giving me the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and also for elevating me. Thank you very much. I know that you've got some meeting of the Africa group, so I hope you'll be able to be with us for some time to the end of this session. Thank you very much for making the point and emphasizing the importance of for us to work on implementing the outcomes of the PAPA plus 40 and the importance of cooperation versus competition, and also I think is a point also raised by Jorge, how countries of the South, this crisis should bring us together rather than trying to push us to compete and compete for PPE. So really, thank you very much, Ambassador Adonia, for making this point. I now give the floor to my dear friend and Mr. Chidiso Matuna, who is the Director General of the National Planning Commission, South Africa.
Thank you very much, Professor Maloka. Excellency Minister Hala El Said, the Office of the UN for South-South Cooperation, Mr. Jorge Chidek, Ambassador Ayabare, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity for South Africa to be part of this important dialogue of countries of the South around COVID-19. Clearly, the pandemic is a mortal shock to the global system. It is unprecedented in its scale and destruction. From a planning perspective, what we've been asking ourselves here in South Africa is that, are we able to predict future pandemics or any other shock to the global system? What early warning capacities can we develop? How best do we make ourselves ready at national level and as a global system to better cope and defend our people, our economies and society against the destructive impact of such shock? This is where the idea of building resilience is critical. It is a fundamental task that we face as humanity at this point in time. I think that the departure point we believe in South Africa is to recognize that the global system by nature is prone to such crises. Crises such as this pandemic, but certainly other crises. And we must therefore focus on building global resilience in as much as we are building national resilience and regional resilience. And in that regard, clearly the Sustainable Development Agenda is a foundation that we must build on and defend. So is multilateralism and of course South-South cooperation. At the domestic level, we believe that the pandemic emphasizes the importance of national development plans, because national development plans are the national basis, the domestic basis for building resilience. And we must pay attention to our capacities to do high quality national development plans. And I know that this is something that the African peer review mechanism under the leadership of Professor Maloka is looking into and getting us to cooperate. We believe that as a lesson from this COVID crisis in South Africa is to say that had we made the kind of progress that we should have made through our national development plan, had we been further down the line in terms of our vision, we would have been better able to cope with this crisis. Our health system would be stronger and access to it would be wider on its road to being universal. Our social protection system would be stronger and access to it would be wider. The human capabilities of our people through education and skills would be stronger. Our economies would be stronger to sustain livelihoods despite lockdowns, through strong enterprises and diversity, because in South Africa, we have a problem of a highly concentrated economy. Our communities would be more organized, and the capacity of our government through institutions of service delivery would be strong. All of these are clearly dimensions of resilience that we need to be looking at to ensure that no one is left behind. To sum it up, therefore, it would be better to have our people able to fish for themselves instead of waiting upon governments and handouts, which might not come. Like elsewhere in the global south, COVID-19 has put a sharp, sobering spotlight on other pre-existing fault lines, pre-existing crises in our country in terms of poverty, unemployment, lack of livelihoods, inequality, and in particular, one inequality that is manifesting itself right now is digital inequality. We are able now to communicate, to relate, to engage, but many of our people are unable to do that. Yes, there must be recovery, but it must be recovery to a different plane. It must be recovery to a different trajectory. It must be, in a sense, a return to the future. I think that our response in South Africa, I'm sure in this forum you are well aware. I just want to emphasize a few points. We know that the legal and policy framework is important. So we were able to leverage on a legislation that was conceived many years ago for different sort of disasters. Called the National Disaster Management legislation. It was designed for natural disasters, but it has come in handy. But it has shown that you need a very strong legal framework on which to base your responses. Like other countries, we have had a stimulus package. We are intervening on the social protection side through a social relief grant, which has now been extended to something called a basic income grant for all adults between the age of 18 to 59% who are unemployed. And of course, our health interventions. We are firm believers as South Africa to international cooperation. And so, as you will all know, we have joined under the World Health Organization global cooperation around finding a vaccine. But this must have a very deliberate South-South focus, not only in health, but in other areas of research and development and technologies. I've mentioned, for example, the digital technologies, as it were. So thank you very much for this opportunity to be part of this dialogue and to learn from each other. And I'd like to congratulate the APRM, the Embassy of Uganda, and of course the UN Office of South-South Cooperation for this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Matuna, and also thank you very much for really, you could say, really dealing with the national aspects of this crisis. I like the points you made about the importance of planning, looking at the crisis from the perspective of planning, the issues that it really looked at our capacity and capabilities with respect to prediction and early warning and preparing ourselves. And really, you say resiliency, you sum it well when you say resilience is you build you give the country the capacity to fish for itself rather than dependency and so on, so that whenever any crisis, because this is just one crisis, there could be others, the country should be able to react and react timely and be able to cope with this crisis. Thank you very much, and I'm going to talk to you offline on this on the issues you raised, because we are working with the African Union and the UN agency on disaster risk management. We are preparing and working towards convening an expert process and incorporating some of this work in what we're doing as the APRM. There's also a process to convene a meeting of ministers of planning to look at how we strengthen planning at country level. I would like now to invite our sister from Colombia, Madam Catalina Quintero, Director for South-South Cooperation in the Presidential Agency for Cooperation in Colombia. Madam, you have the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon for everyone. Many thanks for the co-organizers for the invitation. I would like to talk about 2 points. First, our national response to COVID-19, and then how we see South-South cooperation as a key modality of cooperation to overcome the challenges and the weakness that COVID has given us during these days. So I want to let you know that here in Colombia, we have recently reached 100 days of national preventive lockdown. On these uncertain times, that is a worldwide uncertain times, and just like many other countries around the globe, we have faced numerous challenges, mostly related to COVID's impact on our national healthcare system and our economy, of course. For this important scenario that brings together voices of the Global South, I would like to highlight some key points. First, I want to briefly share the Colombian response to COVID-19. And then I want to talk about the paramount role of South-South cooperation on facing these challenges. When the pandemic reached our country, the national government created the COVID-19 Comprehensive Task Force, a coordination mechanisms that articulates the national response of the different public institutions that are responding to the emergency. Based on epidemiological models and calculations, the task force created 4 working groups with the purpose of increasing the national capacity on personal protective equipment, test, hospital infrastructure, and healthcare personnel. But also, not only we work on the health area, we also work on the economic area. Concerned about the high rate of informal employment, Colombia developed several strategies to make possible for low-income families to stay home during the lockdown. On one hand, the massive crowdfunding campaign led by First Lady has gathered funds and meal kits, which are helping over 3 million Colombian families. On the other, the new welfare program for vulnerable and low-income families support those affected by the pandemic who are not included in any other social program. At least today, we are supporting over 2.5 million families who will receive direct money transfers for 8 months. And also, we had a wide range of financial measures from freezing rent and mortgage payments to lower interest rates and extending grace periods on educational credits. We know it's not easy to mitigate the economic impact of the pandemic. However, the government is taking effective and decisive steps toward resilience. This is how our government is working on COVID. But now, and also I want to talk about the paramount role of South-South cooperation on facing the challenges posed by COVID-19. First, I want to highlight that our time is now. We need to adapt quickly for new circumstances. In this scenario, South-South cooperation become a key factor for resilience. Over the years, we have heard that South-South cooperation has proved to be exceptionally useful for promoting horizontal relations that contributes to close development gaps in countries of the Global South. Now, more than ever, its role and even more so, its positive impact is getting noticed by nations and other cooperation actors across the world. There are some key elements of South-South cooperations that are gaining relevance amid the pandemic. First, this modality of cooperation is based on the acknowledgement of mutual challenges and strengths, recognizing that we can indeed lead the way for our own homegrown solutions. Second is an agile and flexible mechanism. It allows us to share valuable experience in the middle of socioeconomic crisis. For instance, it was mentioned before, at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, there were many global South countries going online for meetings between hospital managers and doctors on how to treat patients and adapt hospital infrastructure. Also, another important point of South-South cooperation is driven by solidarity among countries, which translates into a goodwill of sharing best practices with partner countries. Furthermore, this type of programs, projects, and initiatives open a window for new knowledge and capacity development, so that this acquired knowledge is adapted and updated according to each country's particularities. In fact, as was already mentioned by Mr. Chediek, early this week, APC Colombia co-organized another high-level political side event, highlighting the importance of science and innovation as key elements of knowledge transfer for sustainable development. We believe in APC Colombia and also in the government that in order to build resilient economies, we believe that science, technology, and innovation are key for economic and social development. As we deal with the urgent matters of the socioeconomic crisis, this unusual situation also pushes us to reflect on the so-called new normal. One thing is for sure, it will surely involve a deeper focus on STI. While COVID-19 has accelerated home office, telemedicine, and e-commerce to keep closing development gaps, we need to strengthen national innovation systems and build capacity for STI policymaking. By promoting research networks, fostering education access to engineering, science, math, and communication technology, and strengthening collaboration with universities and research development centers, the Global South can boost productivity, competitiveness, and employment. Consequently, knowledge transfer in technology is becoming more and more relevant. It was also mentioned before by many of the speakers in this side event. In Colombia, we have decided to prioritize and promote this type of cooperation. And we see a great potential for it to transform challenges into opportunities and to contribute in this post-COVID era. In this sense, I would like finally to share with you the launch of a series of webinars that will begin next week, in which Colombia will share our public policy best practice to tackle COVID-19 in areas such as health, education, culture, access to technology and information, and welfare programs. We hope many of you can join us in these interesting conversations and that we can learn from other countries' creative solutions. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, dear colleague Pintero. Of course, if you can share this information with us, we will also do our part to try to support you and also make sure that we attend. And thank you very much for the points you have made, for sharing with us the experience of Colombia, how your country responded to this crisis, the kind of intervention led by our government in society, and also the point you have raised on South-South cooperation. And I think the point on solidarity is quite key. It was also raised by Jorge. And then the issues around the experience sharing, around digital questions, or around access and innovation. I think these are very, very important points. Perhaps we can talk about them in future. The last speaker is our colleague from the Japan International Cooperation Agency, Mr. Tamoya Yoshida. You've got the floor, my colleague. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. very much for giving me this opportunity to be part of this very important side event. Today, I would like to talk about COVID-19 response by Japan itself and JICA's response, including potential South-South cooperation responding to COVID-19. Okay, second slide, please. Okay, so this slide shows how Japan is responding to COVID-19 in our country. Like other countries, our early response was restriction of entry from abroad. Then, following that, we took three major approaches. The first one is cluster approach, which is a countermeasure to track and test close contacts of infected people to avoid creating other clusters. The second one is state of emergency, but without punitive measures. Even though this order does not have any penalties or enforcement, most of Japanese tried their best to stay at home and reduce the contact by 80%. The third response was encouraging preventive measures such as washing hands and wearing face masks. Among these, the message of avoid 3 C's was advocated strongly by government and expert groups and well known by most of Japanese people. 3 C's which we need to avoid are shown in the poster at the right-hand side in the slide, which are closed space, crowded places, and close contact settings. Those are what Japan has done so far. So next slide. Based on the lessons learned from our experiences, JICA plans to support our partners not only by bilateral ways, but also by promoting South-to-South cooperation. The second slide shows that framework of the partnership in Africa, for example. This is called PREPARE, which stands for Partnership for Building Resilience Against Public Health Emergencies through Advanced Research and Education. Under this partnership, JICA supports strengthening capacity of national core laboratories such as Noguchi Memorial Institute in Ghana and Nigeria CDC, and so on. The second is to strengthen capacity of disease control experts in Africa and in Japan. This includes, for example, the latest training course in last February conducted by Noguchi Memorial Institute in Ghana, invited professionals from 9 West African countries and train how to test COVID-19. The third is to network those regional and global disease control initiatives in Africa. Next slide, please. The third slide shows the Asian example. The most vulnerable age group toward COVID-19 is aged population, and especially in the community setting under this COVID-19 situation, aged people tend to be isolated at home due to restriction of transportation and concern to go to hospital for possible infection. The Japan-type project titled Project on Long-Term Care Service Development for Frail Elderly and Other Vulnerable People has developed good model case of community care system for elderly. By this model, care of elderly people are systematically delivered without depending on the effort by families and volunteers. In the future, we would like to share this model with other countries under the partnership with Thailand. So the next slide, please. But finally, I would like to share the result of our quick analysis done by JICA and urgent commitment to COVID-19 in the last slide. The quick analysis was done from April to May this year, and the result was put on JICA's website in early June. Through this exercise, we learned that in many countries, we faced, first, direct health crisis, second, overwhelmed health care system, and third, impact beyond the health sector. As the graph shows, Japan is the most aged country, but our mortality cases are comparatively low by doing such measures which I explained at the first slide. In addition, even under these circumstances, we found that many low and middle income countries demonstrated ownership over their challenges, which included self-motivated individuals and communities, scientific knowledge, and resilient and flexible governments. Based not only on our own experience in Japan, but also on the experience of our friends and partners fighting against COVID-19. JICA will respond to, first, the urgent needs, and second, build resilient and flexible health systems and realize UHC, universal health coverage. And third, establish a sustainable new world and realize human security. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your listening.
No, thank you to you very much, my brother. Thanks also for sharing. This was the 3 C's. I got the 3 C's that Japan used in the campaign to conscientize and to mobilize Japanese society. Avoid crowded places, avoid closed spaces, and I missed the 3rd one, but I'll get the 3rd C from you offline. Thank you very much for sharing that, and also the work of JICA in support on the African continent in the area of public health, the work you are doing in building capacity in our terms of human resources, and also the institutions on African continent, and then the work that you are also promoting in the area of research, and also the analysis or the study you did. If you can share it with us, maybe send it to Tariq to circulate it to us. I'm sure we can access it on your website, but if you are able to share it, we can also look at it, because it's very important scientific. So colleagues, we are at the end of the panel discussions, and we have reached the end of our time allocated. But I don't know whether I saw 1 or 2 questions that were raised. There's one specifically for Mr. Matuna. It's about South Africa. What are the radical shifts that the South African government plans on doing in order to not have a similar problem should we encounter another global crisis? How are they making sure that post-COVID they achieve the National Development Program, which is the national plan, faster? So Mr. Matuna, I don't know whether you want to talk to that. And then there were also questions I saw earlier. I'm not an expert. There was a question here on greetings and compliments. And the one we have 2 points on the promotion of internet freedom and bridging the digital gap. I think it was the point raised by Madam Quintero and also Mr. Matuna. And then upholding of freedom of expression and access to information for grassroots. So I'll just open the floor. If 1 minute each, those who want to make the observations around these questions that were raised by some of the participants who are following this webinar. So I don't know, I don't have any order, and there's no order of precedence. So whoever wants to take the floor, and don't raise the hands digitally. I don't know how to administer that. So just take the floor, and then we'll manage maybe for the next 5 minutes. Then I'll invite Tariq to make the closing remarks. So Mr. Matuna, I don't know, or Ambassador Adonia, whoever wants to talk. Jorge, I don't know, whoever wants to start, you have the floor.
Let me start. You know, I'm going to answer the 2 questions at one go, because firstly, I think that we need to be all working together to establish how we achieve the radical shifts that are required. For us, at the moment, really, the radical shift that we've planned is in our National Development Plan. And I think we need to be a lot more focused, a lot more determined, a lot more disciplined and organized in delivering on our National Development Plan, which, by the way, is aligned to the SDGs, which would mean building the capacities, the institutional capacities, mobilizing the resources that are required for our priorities, because in a lot of our countries, you know, we've got the plans, we know where we want to get to. It is the resources. So I think it's going back to you know, the drawing boards of our plans, prioritizing them, making them to focus on where the fault lines, where the vulnerabilities, you know, that COVID has highlighted. That's probably what I would say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matuna. And as I said, we have this initiative as the African Union of the APRM to convene this meeting of ministers of planning to look at some of these issues. So really, your input here has been enlightening for us, and we intend to engage you offline and further. So Jorge, you want to make one or two, and then we can, whoever, then we can then ask Tariq to make the final remarks.
I think the event confirmed something that, as I mentioned, I have seen in several other side events and panels, which is a lot of very good experiences are being produced in the South. And I think we need to enhance the mechanisms to share them. Our two institutions, both APRM and our office, are precisely built for that. And we look forward to working with Ambassador Ayebare and also other entities to promote that these exchanges go beyond the sharing of the knowledge and become the implementation of practices, which is our objective to improve the livelihoods of people. Because COVID is imposing new, urgent, and very important challenges, and I think we can move in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Thank you very much. I think we will pursue further and try to see and take further this point that you are raising. Ambassador Adoni, I know you have to rush. You have your meeting of the NAM taking place. Do you want to make your exit comments?
Thank you, Eddie. Just to thank APRM and the Office of South-South Cooperation for continued engagement and cooperation. And COVID really is the impact of COVID gives us, an opportunity to really perfect the way we cooperate. But also to say that now the evidence is very clear that no country, however big, this virus has been an equalizer. However big can go it alone. So how do we cooperate better is really not whether we should cooperate. The answer, the issue is how we can do it better to really work together. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you very much. And we must still talk about how we take the Papa Plus 40 outcomes to, you remember we had a meeting in Cairo, and we were supposed to work on a process to take the Papa Plus 40 outcomes to the summit, so that now they are owned by the African Union as a family, and we look at the union-wide measures to support the implementation. So it's something that definitely we need to continue to talk to you, yourself, Jorge, but also your high-level committee. So it's something that it's outstanding between us and your side.
Thank you. Timing is better now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other person, Madam Catalina, you want to make the point? My brother Yeshiba, you want to make the point? Anybody wants to take the floor? Tariq, are you ready? Can you make your closing remarks, and then we then pick everybody?
Yes, Professor Malokai, I'm ready. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. This was really a very rich discussion, I have to say, and I'd like to thank all the distinguished speakers and panelists for this insightful presentation. I would be focusing on what I consider as the major takeaways and lessons learned even from this pandemic, and before getting to some and sharing with you some words about the partnership that we have with APRM. So I think the first takeaway from these discussions and other discussions we have had so far is that countries of the South have been able to put in place really sound and meaningful policies in order to face the pandemic and its social and economic fallout. And I think this represents really an opportunity for countries of the South and even countries from the North, because we are having JICA with us today, and the colleague from JICA shared with us experience of Japan. This is an opportunity to share national experiences, peer learning, the sharing of knowledge, and so many other things about important aspects about also what I can call collective resilience of the South and the whole international community to this pandemic. From the office's perspective, we will be continuing supporting this policy dialogue and the sharing of experiences and peer learning among the partners of the South, but also in the North. It is true that the policies or the measures that have been taken had a very huge economic and social impact and cost, which need also to be mitigated. And this gives me the chance to move on to the second takeaway, which is that what you have highlighted, all of you. This is a need for an active South-South cooperation and international and multilateral cooperation, which is another important lessons that we have learned from this pandemic. The Ambassador Adonia just highlighted right now, and I think also the Secretary General of the UN also highlighted that no country will be able to exit this crisis alone. This is a global crisis and a global challenge which requires a global and coordinated response, and insist here on coordinated response. Global response doesn't mean that we have only to focus on what countries and governments are doing, even if they remain the main actors, but also we have to look at other stakeholders and to establish partnerships with other stakeholders like international organizations, international financial institutions, private sector, and civil society organizations. But the main lesson that we have learned from this pandemic is also that we need also an important scientific cooperation among also research institutions. This is really important. And the role of technology as an efficient element to the response to this pandemic, and also to achieve the SDGs and the 2060 agenda in Africa. I think this is an important element, and Mr. Chediek at the beginning, and also our colleague from Colombia just highlighted the webinar that we had few days back, in which we highlighted the importance of science, technology, and innovation in order to face this pandemic in an efficient way, but also how we can achieve sustainable development goals. Another takeaway that that we can get from this webinar, but also what we have been seeing happening in the global South, that is that Southern solidarity has been maintained. In spite of the crisis, countries of the South have been challenged during these very tough circumstances, but they have maintained their solidarity with each other. They have provided really a vital support to other countries of the South. Another important element that I would like to highlight is data gathering and the timely sharing of information that can save thousands and even millions of lives. This is, I think, an important element that we have learned from this pandemic. But we have at the same time, as some speakers and also the questions that have been asked by one of the participants, and we have to make sure that security of information is ensured, but also the protection of personal data. I have just touched upon the issue of the importance of ICT in order to equip and empower countries and connectivity with this important element of resilience, because connectivity has played a vital role in saving so many lives by limiting the spread of the pandemic in order to implement the measures of social distancing. It allows also business continuity, schooling, education, the provision of so many important and basic services to the population. And this is an important change that has been brought about by this crisis. And we have to strengthen this trend in the future. And hopefully we can get out of this pandemic and this crisis very soon, by strengthening, by reinforcing South-South cooperation, but also by bringing other partners from the North. So, but it's really important that so many colleagues have highlighted is to also to close the digital gap, because according to recent statistics, 46% of the world population, this is represent almost 3.6 billion people in the world, are still without internet and they lack connectivity. I think this is an issue of accessibility and this is a pressing challenge that should be tackled very soon, because as we said before, nobody is immune from this pandemic unless all of us, we are immune from it. So we have seen that this pandemic and the epicenters are moving from one part of the world to another part of the world. I think this is really important that we handle and we tackle the issue of digital gap. As Professor Maluka, have you highlighted, and also Mr. Matona, is that we need preparedness. Preparedness is a key component of resilience and recovery. And in order to build back, we should promote the kind of investment and societal change that will reduce the likelihood of future shocks. And also we need to be well prepared to improve the resilience to this shock whenever they happen. So I'd like here to, this is most of that we have gathered our takeaways from this important webinar, but I'd like really to commend and thank APRM for this initiative of organizing this important event. And also I'd like to thank APRM for being very active in engaging in promoting South-South cooperation within the African continent and beyond. And I have to say that APRM itself is an important mechanism for the sharing of experiences and peer learning and good governance and effective institution in Africa. And what is really very unique about APRM is that looking at the issue of governance from a very holistic point of view, from the political point of view, economic, corporate, and social, I think, and by making all this element of governance reinforcing each other, this is what is unique about APRM, that is an experience, an African experience that could be shared with other countries and other regions of the South. And I have to say that APRM mandate has been extended in order to follow up and monitor the implementation of the 2060 agenda and the 2030 agenda in Africa. And I think this is an important element that gives a lot of space of cooperation, of partnerships with so many stakeholders, so many partners, including the UN Office for South-South Cooperation. And I have to say that APRM has been really very active in the process of the BAPA Plus 40 conference. I remember very well that APRM, in collaboration with the office, we had a meeting in Johannesburg in May 2018, and that meeting was really important in raising the awareness of the African countries on the importance and the objective of the BAPA Plus 40 conference, but most importantly, that meeting contributing to the formation of the position of African countries towards South-South cooperation and all the aspects that have been discussed within the conference. Last January, IPRM also, in collaboration with the office, we had also an important workshop in Egypt in order to deliberate on the operationalization of the BAPA Plus 40 outcome document recommendation in Africa, and to see how South-South cooperation can be used in order to promote the implementation of both agendas, the African Agenda 2063 and the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. And also I'd like to add another element, which is the African governance report, and we look forward mainly for the one to 2021, that it is prepared annually by PRM, and I hope that the issue of South-South cooperation could also be tackled in that report. And all what I have said and so many other aspects of engagement of PRM show clearly the leadership of APRM in promoting South-South cooperation in Africa. I'd like to commend the leadership of Professor Maloka for really his personal engagement in making South-South cooperation of one of the main parameters of engagement of APRM in South-South cooperation. And also I'd like to thank and also commend all the support that is provided by Sarah in making this happen. I think this is an important element to be highlighted. And as Professor Maloka highlighted at the beginning of this meeting, we are in the process of formalizing our partnership through the signing of MAU, and we foresee important steps and action in order to reinforce this partnership. One of them could be the organization of regional forums to promote South-South and triangular cooperation in the continent that will allow African countries and other countries to bring policymakers, practitioners to discuss policy options and to share knowledge, experiences, and to go into process of learning for the achievement of the Agenda 2063 in Africa and the 2030 Agenda. We also believe that development of capacity of the African countries in different areas of sustainable development could be a key aspect of this partnership. And the office will be more than happy to engage with APRM and other partners in this regard. So we look really forward to a fruitful partnership that will contribute the empowerment of the African countries in order to enhance this resilience to shocks such as the one that we are witnessing right now, the COVID-19, but most importantly, how we can achieve sustainable development in the African countries. So UNOCC, UN Office of South-South Cooperation, really looks forward to working with all of you for a fruitful partnership that will make South-South cooperation as an important element to fight this pandemic, but most importantly, how we can work together and to put all our effort in order to achieve sustainable development in the basis of a very active partnerships that will empower people and countries of the South. But thank you very much, and back to you, Professor Maloka. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Tariq. I think you did very well. You gave us, a very comprehensive summary of what you call the takeaways. I listed 6 here. That came out of the presentations of the first one, that countries of the South in their response to COVID-19, of course, develop sound policies and measures, and you talk about the importance of South-South cooperation and global response to the pandemic, the science and technology and innovation component, and that, the issue of solidarity, and then the issue of data and then resilience and preparedness. Thank you very much, and also for talking about the APRM. So we will continue some of the other takeaways you have raised about the MOUs that we need to act on. All that is left for me, really, colleagues, is to thank everybody for being here. I was not meant to chair this. I shared it by accident because Sarah was connected and was presiding, and she had an ICT emergency and just disappeared from the screen. She just called me and said, just take over, I'll explain later, and her phone is even off. So Jorge, everybody, and Adonia, and Mr. Yoshiba, thank you very much, and Mr. Matona, thank you very much, the panelists. Thank you very much for those who followed. I see some questions, the people are requesting information and that the outcomes could be shared. And Jorge, I can see that you have already shared the website, and I know Sarah will also work with you to put together a report. And I saw that there were some questions from Nobo Mashalaba, but all these questions can be entertained offline. So thank you very much, colleagues, and please enjoy. Those who are starting their day in New York, start your day. Good morning. Enjoy your day in South Africa. Of course, it's almost now the afternoon, and in Africa, most of Africa. So good day, and then all the best. Thank you very much.